Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you've had some time to reflect on your goals and dreams during this holiday season and are ready to start working towards making those dreams a reality. We are thrilled that you decided to spend this Thursday evening with Education USA Ukraine and learn more about what it's actually like studying in the United States. So, as some of you may already know, my name is Victoria, and I'm the outreach coordinator for the Education USA network here in Ukraine. We are, of course, part of the global network of the US Department of State, which consists of over 435 international student advising centers in more than 180 countries. As the official source in US higher education, we, of course, offer accurate, comprehensive, and unbiased information about opportunities to study at accredited colleges and universities in the United States. We understand that the process of applying to the US is quite different from that in Ukraine, so we are here to help you every step of the process and answer any questions you may have from beginning to end. Today, we're going to talk specifically about how you can finance your studies in the United States. The first thing that students often hear about American higher education is that it's quite expensive, so that they give up on their dreams before they've even begun working towards them. But can you really afford to study in the United States? Is it possible to make this dream of going to an American college or university a reality without breaking the bank? Well, absolutely. And the first step is to find out early on about the different ways to finance your education in the United States. It is my pleasure to welcome Reychel Uільямс, International Field Recruiter at the University of Kentucky, who will share different sources of financial aid that are available to international students who are looking to study in the United States, and of course help you learn how to earn scholarships from colleges and universities. Before we get started, I would just like to encourage you to stay active and ask lots of questions. We would love to hear from you and help you on your journey to your study. I will of course be monitoring all of the questions and make sure we get to all of them at the end of the session. Reychel, it's an honor to have you here with us. Please take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I am very excited to be here today. My name is Reychel Uільямс at University of Kentucky, and I'm going to give an overview of different ways to finance your studies for both undergraduate and postgraduate studies. Obviously, I can't give you all of the information, that would be too much, but I do want to give you an overview and just ways to really get you started and get you aware of what types of resources are available. So if we can pull up the presentation, I am ready to begin. So I am going to first give you a brief introduction to University of Kentucky. I won't talk about that part for too much, but I will say if you end up being interested in studies at University of Kentucky, you will be able to definitely get in touch with me. So University of Kentucky is located in the city of Lexington, Kentucky. We have been named the #3 safest metro city in the US, and we are a top 100 public research university in the country. We do have over 200 majors and programs because we're a large university. I'm not going to try to name all of them. Our most popular majors are in our College of Engineering, where we have majors like computer science, computer engineering, mechanical engineering, aerospace, and many others. Our College of Business, healthcare professions, if you're interested in pre-medicine, pre-pharmacy, nursing, professions like that, as well as architecture. So these are just a few of our most popular programs. We also are very proud of the amount of financial support that we are able to give to international students. So for fall of 2023, we offered over $9 million in scholarship money for new international undergraduates alone. And we are test optional, meaning we don't require the SAT. We have 3 different scholarship programs available for international students, and it is possible to receive multiple scholarships. So you could receive 1 of them or 2 of them or even all 3 of them and stack them up, which makes it very financially possible to attend the university. which is a great intro into the topic of how to finance your studies and the different kinds of funding opportunities that are available. So the one thing that I want to mention before I begin is common mistakes made by international students. So this is from an article published in the US News and World Report, which is an expert publication in the field. You've probably seen the university rankings from US News and World Report. So they had an article identifying the common mistakes made by international students. And the two big ones are, first, not researching college scholarships or grants that are specific to international students. So not doing the research to know what's out there. And then also only applying to well-known US colleges and universities. I don't even know how many colleges and universities there are in the United States, but there are hundreds. And obviously some of them are very well known. Some locations are very well known. But this is a quote from somebody who worked in admissions at Yale University and Georgetown University, who said that brand does not equate with quality. And an international student would be missing out on hundreds of US schools that offer amazing undergraduate programs and experiences, for example, with dedicated faculty, abundant resources, and smaller class size. So the other big general piece of advice is look beyond brand, look beyond the 5 or 10 American universities you've heard of, because there are more amazing universities out there, more wonderful opportunities for you. So I am going to talk first about the opportunities for undergraduate funding, and then I'll talk about some opportunities for postgraduate funding. So there are a couple of terms that you need to understand when you are going into the application process. So the big difference, there is need-based financial aid versus merit-based financial aid. You will see need-based admission, the terms need-based admissions and need-blind admissions. What does this mean? Need-based admissions means that when you are going to be admitted academically to the university, they are going to look at your financial need. Need-blind admissions means that they are not going to take your financial status into any kind of consideration. They are going to admit you or reject you based solely on your academics. Need-based admissions will be dependent on your family income. You will need to provide proof of finances for this. The most common one is the CSS profile for international students. But to be very frank, need-based financial aid is much more rare for international students. That is because most need-based aid in the United States is provided by the United States government only for US citizens, okay? Now, there are some universities that do have need-based aid for international students. There are not as many, but make sure you ask the question. My university, for example, we do not have need-based financial aid for international students. I think that most of the need-based financial aid for international students will be at private universities rather than public. So these are more rare, but need-based aid does exist. Then the more common type of aid that you will encounter, and probably the one that you've heard of, is merit-based, which are scholarships. Scholarships are competitive. Depending on the scholarship, there are different criteria you have to meet, and your family's economic situation is not part of the consideration. They're not going to look at that at all. This is the type of financial aid that is most available to international students. So most scholarships and funding opportunities have some common features. They're competitive. There are specific criteria or qualities that you must meet depending on the kind of scholarship, and I'll talk about the different kinds you might encounter in just a minute. For most scholarships, you are not automatically considered. You need to, in some way, indicate that you want to be considered. It might be an application process. It might be just checking a box saying, yes, I'd like to be considered for scholarships. The most important thing here is you need to do the research. You need to figure out for the universities you're interested in what kinds of scholarships are available and what you need to do to apply. So here are the kind of undergraduate scholarships that are available, mostly. Now, there might be some others that I am not mentioning here, but these are the most common ones that you will see. Academic scholarships. These are the scholarships that most people are familiar with, and they are the most common kind of scholarship that you will encounter. They can be general to the university, so anyone who's applying to the university, or they can be for people who are applying to engineering programs or business programs. These academic scholarships will be based on your transcript, your high school record, and sometimes your standardized test score. Standardized test score meaning your SAT or ACT if you take it. COVID has changed this quite a bit. It used to be incredibly common for, if you want to be considered for scholarships, you must submit the SAT. But most universities have gone test optional during COVID and have remained on that model. But it is always worth asking. So for my university, for example, at University of Kentucky, pre-COVID, we required SAT scores if you want to be considered for scholarships. Now, we do not require the SAT. If you choose to submit it, we will take it into consideration, but it is not necessary. So the academic scholarships are the ones that are the most common. Normally for an academic scholarship, there will not really be an application process because it's based on your grades, what you are submitting to the university already in order to be admitted. What you do have to look at for the academic scholarships is there might be an earlier application deadline. Something to consider as well, there might be some scholarships that are first year or continuing students only. So first year scholarships are usually part of the application process, or they indicate on the application how you can be considered for them. But then keep in mind, once you enroll at a university, for subsequent years, there might be more scholarships available. Athletic scholarships. So athletic scholarships are very different from most other scholarships in the US because they go through athletic departments, not academic departments. It is very competitive to get an athletic scholarship in the US. You have to be an incredible standout at most universities. And there is a kind of complicated process to go through that I'm sure Education USA can help you with, and university representatives can help you with as well. Mostly for athletic scholarships, you will communicate with coaching staff, not with admissions staff like me. So for example, if a student approaches me and says, I am an elite swimmer, and I think that I would be a good fit for your swim team, and I would like to be considered for an athletic scholarship. My role is to point you to where to go to register your interest on our website. And that's really it. There is nothing else that I can do except facilitate that process. So athletic scholarships are going to go through athletics departments. Ambassador programs are another kind of scholarship that you might commonly see at American universities. So representatives of international students for your country or region was part of the recruitment team. So we do have an ambassador scholarship. If you are an international ambassador scholarship recipient at my university, you have a profile on our website so students can ask you questions. You might do social media content for us. You might participate in webinars with us, things like that. And then diversity scholarships are also pretty common at American universities. So these can be based on nationality, religious background, ethnic background, a number of things. So these are the most common types of scholarships, merit-based aid you will see in US universities. There might be other kinds. At a religiously affiliated university, there might be scholarships based on religious affiliation, for example. There can be different scholarships that I haven't named here that are specific to a university, but in general, these are the broad categories of what you will encounter. Now, the application process. Most of these scholarships, they're not going to just hand it to you. You are going to apply. So there might be a spot to apply on the general application for admission, or there might be a separate application that is necessary. What will you need to apply to scholarships? Again, that is going to differ on the university, on the scholarship program. Some elements to consider that you will often see. A letter of recommendation will be necessary, an essay or personal statement that is separate from the personal statement you generally submit for your application. Normally, if a scholarship requires an essay, it will be something more specific than the general topics for the statement of purpose for the general application. So another essay might be necessary. If you are applying to 2 different scholarships, you might have to write 2 more essays. Standardized tests, as I said, may be necessary, either the SAT or the ACT. But again, that has changed a lot, but it's always worth asking universities. I will sometimes students will ask me, what about my English proficiency exam? If I scored really high on the IELTS or the TOEFL, can that help me get scholarships? And the answer to that is no. The English proficiency exam just measures your English proficiency. That's it. As long as you meet the minimum requirement, that's all we're going to look at. Having a really high English proficiency, obviously that's excellent because it means your English is excellent, but normally it's not going to have any effect on scholarship consideration. And something else to consider is that some scholarships might have an interview as part of the process. Of course, an interview done on Zoom. We are not expecting anyone to do in-person interviews. The really big thing to keep in mind for scholarships is the deadlines may be, and usually are, different than university admissions earlier. So again, just to use my university as an example, if you were looking to start in fall of 2024, so you're looking to enroll in university for August 2024, right now you can still apply to my university and be admitted to the university, but our scholarship deadline has passed. Our scholarship deadline was December 1st for our academic scholarships. So if you wanted to be eligible for those, you needed to apply early. Right? So you really want to be organized. I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I could give in general for your admissions process is be organized. Keep a spreadsheet for yourself of the different universities and the different deadlines. Because the absolute worst thing in the world is when I see a student who 100% would have been qualified for this scholarship and they just applied too late. The other thing to think about are deadlines versus priority deadlines. What does that mean? A hard deadline, if it just says deadline, that means, let's say the deadline is February 1st for some scholarship. If it says deadline February 1st, that means if you apply after February 1st, you're not going to be considered. Hard deadline. If it says priority deadline is February 1st, that means people who apply by that date have priority. They will be considered first. And then if you apply after February 1st, if there is money left, right, for these scholarships, you may be considered, but there is no guarantee. So always treat every deadline like a hard deadline, is my general piece of advice there. So graduate funding. So I'm moving on now to talk about postgraduate funding. If you are interested in coming to the universities in the US for your master's or your PhD, for example. Funding works very differently on the graduate versus the undergraduate level. For the most part, graduate funding comes in the form of an assistantship. It can be a research assistantship, which means you are research focused. It can be a teaching assistantship, which means you are teaching focused, or a general graduate assistantship, which might mean a combination of research and teaching. It might mean other duties. Usually as an assistant, as a research assistant or a teaching assistant, what you get is tuition remission, meaning you do not pay tuition, and a living stipend. So you'll get a salary basically every month. It won't make you rich, but it will be enough to support yourself. This is the most common type of funding you will see as a graduate student. Now, also, there may be grants, which are more similar to scholarships. Grants, fellowships, or scholarships would be, like scholarship money. That would be specific to each university. These things do exist, but it's very dependent on program and university. But at the postgraduate level, if you're applying for masters and PhDs, most commonly the funding will come in terms of graduate assistantships of some nature. What is the application process for a graduate assistantship? It's harder to speak about this than it is about the undergraduate opportunities, simply because It is so different from university to university, and even within a university from department to department. So generally, assistantships come in half assistantships or whole assistantships. A whole assistantship would mean what I just described, full tuition remission plus a stipend, a small salary. A half assistantship would cut that in half, which some universities will do, meaning you would be responsible for half of your tuition and you would have half of the stipend money. Either way, the number of hours per week will be specified when you get the offer. The number of classes you will teach if you're expected to be a teaching assistant, or the number of hours of research that is expected of you. So everything will be laid out very clearly and what the expectations are from you if you accept this scholarship, this funding opportunity, this assistantship. There may be a separate application process. So different departments will have different application processes for assistantships. So they might have a whole separate document. What they will usually ask for would be something like a CV. They might ask for a statement of research interests if it's for a research related position, or talk about teaching experience you've had if it's for a teaching related assistantship. Again, these go through the individual department, not the university as a whole. So just to give an example, let's say you're applying for a PhD program in biology, and you are applying for funding for an assistantship to afford these studies. You apply to the university as a whole to be admitted, and then for the assistantship, your application goes specifically through the biology department. Generally, this is how things work for these opportunities. And very often, especially in research-related fields and for research assistantship for the sciences, STEM programs, engineering, things like that, very often assistantship opportunities will depend on which professors have research openings in their labs. So is there a professor in the department who matches your research interests? And does that professor have opening for a graduate student in their lab? That's why I think an important part of the process for graduate students is to make sure you are in correspondence with a professor who you want to work with, because in being offered an assistantship, individual professors have a lot of sway. Let's say there's a professor in mechanical engineering and you are applying for their PhD program. Contact this professor to say, here's my name, here's my experience, here are my interests. I'd be really interested to work with you. Hopefully they will get back to you. If they do, and if they think that you would be a good fit to work with them, they will advocate, they personally can advocate for you to get an assistantship position. So on the graduate level, speaking to individual professors can be a really important part of the process. So that is it. I tried to kind of give you a really broad overview. The most important things to remember is because there is a huge amount of universities in the United States, there are going to be specifics that differ from university to university. Never hesitate to ask a question. I think, okay, I said be organized is my most important piece of advice. There's two most important pieces of advice. Be organized. Don't hesitate to ask questions. You have right here one of the best resources available. The Education USA advisors are incredibly knowledgeable. They can help you. There's no such thing as a silly question. We all realize that the process of applying for American universities can be very foreign. And also university representatives like myself. There are people like me at every university in the United States. We love to answer your questions. You can email us and I can answer any question you have. I can do a Zoom meeting with you to iron things out. I can introduce you to current students at our university. I can introduce you to students who have the same interests as you, right? So never hesitate to ask questions. But that is pretty much it for me.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for a fantastic presentation. I highly enjoyed it and found it very informative. And I would just like to once again encourage our students, please do not hesitate to reach out to us and ask any questions you may have. We are more than happy to assist you and help you on your journey to US study. And the first question I see is from Vika. Vika, thank you so much for joining us. And Vika is wondering, is it possible to get a full ride scholarship based on the program that you mentioned?
So that's a good question. So the term full ride scholarships. Oh, and I see that a QR has gone up, code has gone up right above my head. That will take you to the University of Kentucky admissions website if you want to look further at what we offer. Full ride scholarship would indicate a scholarship that covers both your tuition costs and your living costs. Those are very rare in the United States. At my university, for example, if you receive multiple scholarships, because I said we have more than one scholarship for international students, it is possible for a student to get full tuition scholarship. So if you add scholarships up, it is possible to get to full tuition. We do not offer any scholarships that cover living expenses. And I think you will see that same situation at many US universities. One thing to think about though, in terms of, somebody thinking, okay, living expenses are very high cost and not normally covered by scholarships, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One, most universities, but not all, do require you to live on campus the first year. After that first year, getting an apartment with some roommates off campus can save you a lot of money. Another thing that I think most universities do, and our university does, is after you live on campus for 1 year, you can apply to be a resident advisor. A resident advisor is a student who's kind of responsible for the other students in the dorm on one floor and kind of helps them out. This job comes with free housing and meals. So that means it's basically taking care of your living expenses. So 1 expensive year for living expenses, and then you can get that job, hopefully. For graduate scholarships, graduate funding, as I said, the usual model is they pay your tuition and then give you a living stipend. And then that living stipend is enough to cover your housing and your meals. So full ride is very rare, though it does exist. It never hurts to ask if it's available.
Thank you so much for such a great answer, and thank you, Vika, for reaching out. If you still have any questions about applying for scholarships or any general questions about the admission process, you are more than welcome to sign up for a free consultation with one of our lovely advisors and get all the information and resources you're looking for. We would be happy to assist you. And we've got the next student who is wondering how much Olympiads affect scholarship and grants for students, so like regional competitions or like national, international level ones?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I know students very often have questions about their extracurriculars and how that's going to affect both admissions and scholarships. It depends on the scholarship. So as I said, some of the academic scholarships, all they're looking at is your high school transcript, your grades. It doesn't matter what else you did. You have this GPA, you get this scholarship. Now, there are other scholarships where Olympiads might, these kind of things might affect the outcome. For example, an engineering-based scholarship will certainly take these things into account. Another example, like our International Ambassador Scholarship, we ask students to write an essay describing their experience with leadership and volunteering, right? So depending on the kind of scholarship, they're going to ask for different things. So Olympiads, things like that can be helpful depending on the kind of scholarship. And there might be just some general scholarships where they want to see a record of involvement across the board in a lot of different things.
Thank you so much for such a detailed answer, and thank you so much to our wonderful students for reaching out. Please feel free to write down your questions. We're happy to answer them. And we've got another question from a student who's wondering, do universities and foundations have limits on the number of grants you can receive?
That is a great question as well. The answer is normally no, but as I said, we don't offer any scholarships for living expenses, but if you receive an external grant that would cover living expenses, that has nothing to do with us, right? So you could totally do that. So no, there's no limit to the amount that you could receive.
Thank you so much for your answer. And actually, I have a question of my own that a lot of students often ask, and it would be about opportunities to work on campus. In particular, how can students applying to a university show their interest in working on campus, and maybe what are some of the requirements?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think that's something that a lot of students don't realize what the rules are, how universities handle that. So for international students, you are allowed to work up to 20 hours per week at the university. You can't just go off and find a job anywhere. And then during winter break and summer break, you can work up to 40 hours per week at the university. Different universities have different amounts of jobs available. At our university, I could say there's never been a student who's wanted a job and has not been able to find one. We have so many employment opportunities for students on campus. Usually, you will not apply for these until you get to campus. And you can do it right away because we have many international students and domestic students who are going to be depending on a job to help meet their living expenses. So when you first arrive on campus, you can start applying for jobs. And we've had students who within 3 or 4 days, they found a job on campus. What do jobs on campus look like? There is a huge variety. You could be working in Starbucks on campus. You could be working in the library. You could be working in the dining hall. No one wants to work in the food services. That means it's the highest paying job on campus. And then they offered, one year they were so desperate for workers that if you worked for 3 months and didn't miss any of your shifts, you got a $500 bonus. They're pretty well paid. So usually your first year, you're doing something general like this. Then as students advance in their majors, we have students who have the opportunities for on-campus employment that are actually related to their career goals. So we've had students who are majoring in information communication technology, working in IT. We have students who get research as undergraduates. They get paid to do research with professors in their labs. Students who are interested in social media and content creation, for example, have done on-campus jobs working on social media and things like that. As you progress in your major, you will have more and more opportunities for jobs that are not going to simply help you get, the extra money you need, but they are going to be relevant to your goals and your studies, and therefore are going to help you when it comes to get experience when it comes to applying for jobs or applying for graduate school. So that's an amazing question. And there are so many opportunities for students to work on campus. And as I said, during the summertime, if you're staying on campus, you can work as many hours as you have time to. It's just limited during the semester. And we do not recommend, 20 hours per week is the most you can work. We really don't recommend students start at 20 hours per week because it's a lot to get used to being in a new environment, in a new country, at a university. 20 hours is a lot when you're trying to juggle all that. So you don't have to work that 20 hours per week. You can work 5 hours per week, 10, whatever works for you, your schedule, and how much you need to work.
Thank you so much for such a great answer. I really found so much important and useful information for myself as well as to share with the students. And I've got a follow-up question from Vika. So Vika is wondering, can I work on campus during the first year of studying?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We have students who arrive on campus for orientation, start applying for jobs right away, and get hired pretty much right away.
Thank you so much for your answer. And we've got Sasha, who's also wondering about on-campus jobs. So Sasha is asking, can graduate students work on campus? So Starbucks, library, etc., and cover tuition this way?
So the reality is any job you can get on campus, either as an undergraduate or graduate, is not going to be enough to cover your tuition. When you think about how much tuition costs, how many hours per week you can work, that is not going to add up. Graduate students can get on-campus jobs. If you are a research assistant or a teaching assistantship, you might not be able to because that would kind of max out the numbers of week you can work. But let's say you get a teaching assistantship, that's 10 hours per week of work. That means you could technically get a job at the library for another 10 hours per week. And it is very common for students to be able to use what they earn from their on-campus job that covers all of their meals, buying groceries, things like that. So I think it's unrealistic to expect that it could cover tuition at my university or any university.
Thank you so much for such an informative answer. And we've got a question from Anastasia. Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us. So Anastasia is wondering, what is the difference between an F1 and a J1 visa?
Sure. So an F1 visa is a student visa. This is if you are planning to come to an American university to get your 4-year undergraduate degree, master's degree, or PhD, you are most likely going to be applying as an F1 student. You have to be enrolled in a university full-time to be considered for an F1 visa. If you decide you don't want to be a full-time student, you only want to be a part-time student, or if you drop out or fail out of the university, your F1 visa is revoked. A J1 visa is an exchange visitor visa. This is for people who are approved to participate and work in study-based exchange visitor programs. So like it's like a bridge visa. So if you're approved to study abroad for a semester or a year at a US university, not doing a whole 4-year degree. So for your question in particular, one of the ISFA forms questions, expected visa type, it's going to be an F1, unless you are only applying to spend a year in an American university.
Thank you so much for your answer. And Anastasia, I just want to add, if you have any more questions about completing your admission form or any visa-related questions, we are, of course, available to help you. And you can always sign up for a free consultation with one of our lovely advisors. So the next question I see is from Vika. So Vika, thank you so much for being so active today. And Vika is wondering, can you add up scholarships and grants in all the universities? So I do believe in the university you're applying to.
Yes, most universities will let you do that. Obviously, so most scholarships you're applying to are specific to that university. So if the University of Kentucky gives you our Bluegrass Academic Excellence Scholarship, you can't take that to another university. But there are some general scholarships and grants that are not attached to universities, and you can take them to any university you apply to.
Thank you so much for your answer, and thank you, Vika, for wonderful participation today. It's so lovely to see you so motivated. And I guess a final question on my part would be a rather general one, and it would be, how would you maybe describe an ideal student or the qualities of a student you're looking for?
That is a great question, and I think it's a difficult one to answer in some ways, but very simple in others. Difficult because, well, an ideal student for engineering or an ideal student for the social sciences or literature is different. The qualities that you need to succeed. In general, though, the ideal student is somebody who is simply open to new experiences and to new ideas. I think that it's scary even for American students to start university, and they're not going very far away from home. So for an international student coming to the United States, maybe you never left your home country before. Maybe even though you've gone to school in English, you have English proficiency, to conduct every single thing in your life in English is going to be difficult. To live in a university dormitory with a roommate, you're going to encounter a lot of things that can seem like obstacles or can seem like hard situations. And so the ideal student is a student who's going to look at these as exciting opportunities, look at these as adventures, and just be really open to the new things and new experiences both in terms of cultural, but also academic. And I think that's an important thing too. If you think about, as I said, there are 200 different majors at our university. As a high school student, you have no idea what all of these majors are or what they mean, right? And at any American university, it's really easy to change your major during the first year, because you're going to learn about new disciplines you didn't know existed, new career paths that you didn't know existed. So not just keeping dead set on, yes, I said I was going to be a biochemistry major, so that is what I'm going to do, but to be open to all of the new fields that you're going to learn about your first year and think about, wow, maybe this other major, maybe biomedical engineering, I knew nothing about that. Maybe that's the one that's right for me. So I think in general, that's the most important quality, probably for life in general, not just for university students.
Thank you so much for such an encouraging answer. And I see another question from Sasha. So Sasha is wondering, is it okay to apply for a master's degree that's different from my bachelor's degree? So Sasha's got a diploma in economics, but would like to study media management.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the two things you'll want to think about is one, since you're applying to study media management, do you have any relevant experience in media management? And how can you address how an economics degree can help you with media management? But 100%, yes.
Thank you so much for your answer, and thank you so much, Sasha, for reaching out. Once again, you can always reach out to our lovely advisors and get more in-depth advice on looking for programs that you might be interested in or seeking fundings that is relevant to the degree you're looking into. And I guess the final question for today would be from Elena. So Elena is wondering, what does a letter with recommendation require? So probably, do you require letters of recommendation? And if so, what would be some of the things to look out for in requesting these letters?
Sure. So most universities will require a general letter of recommendation for admissions. For that letter, we are simply looking for somebody who's familiar with you academically. This might probably be your guidance counselor, depending on your school. It might be a teacher who you know pretty well. They want to write a general letter that's going to focus on how you are as a student and as a person, hopefully. Some scholarships may require a letter of recommendation. And if it's a scholarship that's, for example, our International Ambassador Scholarship, I just keep using that as an example because that's the one I'm familiar with. The International Ambassador Scholarship, you want to tell your teacher, here's the scholarship that I'm applying for, and they want me to talk about my experiences in like leadership and volunteerism. So the academics are not as important as showing that you're an involved, engaged in your community student. So it's important to communicate with the person who's writing the letter what it's for. This is a general letter for admission to the university. It's for a scholarship for engineering students. It's for a scholarship for ambassador program. And obviously, if it's a scholarship for engineering students, don't ask your English teacher to write it, right? Ask your math teacher, your science teacher, something like that.
Thank you so much for wonderful answers and for a fantastic presentation today. I highly enjoyed chatting to you and learning a bit more about the University of Kentucky and some of the amazing opportunities it offers international students. I would just like to encourage our lovely viewers today to please not hesitate to reach out to me if you have any more questions about today's lecture or in general any more questions about the admission process to US colleges and universities or any exchange programs you might be interested in. We're here to help you and support you. And of course, if you have any more questions to Rachel, I will be more than happy to forward your questions and make sure that we get the right answers to you. Thank you so much for being so active today. It's been an immense pleasure talking to you and learning a bit more about your journey to US study. I wish you the best of luck on your journey. Persevere, believe in yourself, and you will reach your goal and make this dream of studying in the US a reality. I wish you all a wonderful evening. And Rachel, would you maybe like to say a few final words of encouragement?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for asking amazing questions. They really show the level of preparation you already have, the level of interest. And I would say, yes, it can be challenging, the application process for American universities, especially because it's different for every university. It can be challenging when you think about how much money it costs to study in the United States. But do your research, keep up with your goals, never ever hesitate to reach out to people for help. But I said that before, but I'm saying that again because that is the most important thing. Reach out to your EdUSA advisors, reach out to the universities that you are interested in. We want to help you. We want you to succeed. We want you to be admitted to our university, receive all the scholarships, and come so we can meet you in person. Everyone that you are dealing with is rooting for your success and wants to help you out. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Thank you so much for wonderful words of encouragement. And just to add to that, communication is key, as Rachel has said, and you have a wonderful network of support, both within the Education USA community, within the community of current Ukrainian students studying in the United States and willing to help you, and of course, Ukrainian student alumni who are currently sharing their experiences about studying in the United States. I do hope to see you next Thursday when we'll be discussing essay writing and helping you even more on your journey to US study. Stay safe, stay with Education USA, and keep believing in yourself. Bye.